I think things are quickly inching towards panic time in Sacramento. And I'm not going to lie to y'all, I would be really worried if I was a Kings fan about the future of this team. Feels like we are a long time away from the 21-22 season, or was it the 22-23 season that was magical for Sacramento? I believe it's 22-23. It just seems like things the last 2 years have just consistently gotten worse. Last year wasn't great. This year seems to be going even worse, and the rumblings coming out that De'Aaron Fox wants out of Sacramento potentially, and he's a guy who would, number one, be a huge asset on the trade market, a guy they could get a lot of pieces for. But you're Sacramento. You're not a big free agent destination. You're not a big... you haven't developed draft picks for the most part all that well anyway. I mean, I just think realistically, this is not looking good for Sacramento right now. We're going to break it down more in this video. Before we hop into it, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Help me push towards the 2,000 subscriber mark on the channel. Back to uploading every single day. Tons of NBA content. We really appreciate it if y'all do subscribe. My voice sounds weird. I apologize. I'm sick. Just trying to push through it the best I can. But yeah, with that being said, Sacramento. Look, this is not a horrible team, but it's not a great team either. And you are playing in a great Western Conference with a player in De'Aaron who is now, 27, kind of entering his prime, and not even just entering his prime. He's certainly in his prime right now. And I think he is trying right now to maximize that prime as much as he possibly can. And I don't know if Sacramento is looking like the place to do that, because here's the problem with this team. They're a very good, in theory, offensive team, but they decided to add DeMar DeRozan to the mix this year instead of building the way that most other teams did, where you're trying to build shooting and defense. Two things that DeRozan doesn't really give you at a super high level. He shot the three ball a little bit more this year and hasn't been horribly inefficient, but we know he's not really an elite level floor spacer, and that's a really limiting thing to have on the court next to already a guy in Sabonis who plays from the interior, and even Fox, who likes to play from the interior as well. His speed and quickness and ability to get into the paint is a big part of his skill set. I don't love the fit of DeMar DeRozan. I don't think he adds a ton defensively to a team that already isn't an elite defensive team. I feel like the fit between their three stars isn't great. And again, their best player didn't sign his extension, and there's now rumblings talking about that he might want out. Like, that's really bad if you're Sacramento, because the haul that you get for De'Aaron Fox, like I said, would be a good one. But when you're not a free agent destination and you haven't proven to develop draft picks consistently at a high level, that doesn't mean much, because Sacramento isn't a place that's going to be able to just flip the switch and rebuild because they have all these assets. If they lose De'Aaron Fox, they're looking at years of mediocrity, I think, in all likelihood again, and that's just a rough spot to be. The Western Conference is loaded, y'all. I get it, but damn, like games like tonight, I know they didn't have Domantas Sabonis, but they had a 10-point lead with 3 minutes left and choked at home. Like, that's brutal. The Kings have just found a way to lose a lot recently, and things are just not going well. And I don't understand. Like, Keon Ellis plays 14 minutes again tonight. If you look at the numbers, Keon Ellis in his 549 minutes has been a plus 13 per 100 possessions for the Kings this season. He has been their best player on off. He's a guy who can come in and provide shooting on offense and high level, high effort point of attack defense, which is something that this roster lacks. And I just think, I don't understand why he plays so little. It's baffling to me that he's played half the minutes of all these starters. And then just realistically, Keegan Murray, I think he's a good player, but his shooting has gone so far downhill this year. And I don't really know why. Like, it was downhill last year too. When he enters the league as a rookie, he's this elite sharpshooter, 6 attempts a game, 41% from three. Last year, it's a little worse, but it's still 36% from three. I mean, it's not as good, but it's still not horrible. He's at 30% on 5.5 attempts this year. Like, what has gone wrong with Keegan Murray? He's still a positive player for them because, again, he's another one of those guys who's one of the few players on this team that provides defense, but they really need more from him, especially on a roster that, again, Fox, DeMar, Sabonis, not exactly the greatest spacing trio of all time. This is not a great spot at all to be for Sacramento in a variety of different ways. And you look at the standings, they're currently 5 games under 500. They're 3 games out of the 10 seed now. Like, things just look really, really rough for Sacramento because it already is looking like, oh, they might struggle to be a play-in team this year. And that's not going to cut it. Plain and simple. Like, yes, this is a really good draft, but they're not going to be bad enough that unless lottery luck goes their way, they'll have a high pick. So this is a team that could very easily finish outside the play-in and yet wind up with the 13th pick or 12th pick. You know what I'm saying? Like, they could really wind up, maybe it wouldn't quite be the 12th pick, but I don't know, the 10th pick. Like, they may not wind up with they almost certainly will not wind up with a super high pick. And you combine that with, look, there again, it's Sacramento. I'm not trying to disrespect it, but it's Sacramento. They're not going to have high picks. They're not going to be a free agent destination. They have to work with what they have now and improve upon what they have now. Otherwise, they're kind of screwed. You look at the numbers. Honestly, overall, they're not a terrible team. They're 16th in defensive rating, 112.9. They're 8th in offensive rating, 114.4. They have a 1.6 net rating, which means that them being 5 games under 500 is unlucky, 100%. But it's also the way things are. And 3 games back in a tough Western Conference is a really bad spot to be for this Kings team. Let me real quickly pull up the strength of schedule stuff. The biggest issue I have with this team, look at the strength of schedule remaining, y'all. They are 3rd hardest strength of schedule remaining in the league. So yes, their record is a little bit unlucky based on the numbers right now, but they are not going to have it easy as the season progresses at all. And that's a really, really unfortunate thing for a team that is already 5 games already under 100, 5 games under 500, already 3 games out of the play-in. Like, it's not going to get easier schedule-wise. So they're going to have to play better if they want to win. I think the biggest thing that limits this team offensively, by the way, is they're this off-ball movement, high-level offensive team, or at least that was the idea with them. But with the core they've built and with the lack of elite shooting that this roster seems to struggle with, they are, 7th worst in three-point percentage in the entire league. I don't think the offense that they're trying to run is super cohesive to a lineup that doesn't actually shoot the ball very well. So if they can't start shooting the ball better, we know they're never going to be an elite defensive team, but Keon Ellis should 100% be playing more. I think that's just an easy fix right now. Today, he should be playing 25 to 30 minutes a game. Why he's only playing 10, 15 minutes a night is baffling to me. Things have to change now in Sacramento. Otherwise, they're going to lose De'Aaron Fox, which will be a crippler for this team. Mike Brown will get fired, which I think a lot of Kings fans might be happy with at this point, with his rotations being questionable for sure, and the Keon Ellis issue for sure, as well as like you're literally not playing one of your best players. It's probably your best role player, your most useful role player, and you don't play him. I don't get it. I truly don't get it. If I was a Kings fan, I would be pissed. I'd be frustrated, and I realistically, I'd be really disappointed, honestly, as well. Because yes, you can say pissed, frustrated, all that type of stuff. Those are words that generally I almost want to reserve, and this isn't meant to be disrespectful, but I would almost reserve those for franchises that are used to winning. Like, I'd be pissed if I was a Kings fan still too, but even more so, I'd just be disappointed. Like, it is brutal. This team looked like they were finally building something, and now they look like they're back to being among the dregs. Like, they're not as bad as they used to be, but in a loaded conference with the Clippers still potentially going to get Kawhi back soon. I know Luke is out for a while, but the Mavs are still going to be good. And every other team in the West is mostly healthy, playing different levels of basketball, sure, but there's 11 teams above them right now that I think are legitimately noticeably better teams. This is a really rough spot for the Kings. I feel bad for them, and I just don't know what the future holds at this point for this squad, to be honest. So hope y'all did enjoy the video. If you did, make sure you hit that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe. I'll be back with more NBA content very, very soon, and I appreciate y'all. Peace.